Stop using these 5 Bible verses wrong. Judge not. I can do all things through Christ. We've all heard these verses, right? They're on our coffee mugs, our t-shirts. They've become the Christian world's favorite catchphrases. They're comforting, they're motivational, and they are everywhere. But what if I told you that the way we use them has stripped them of their actual power? What if we've turned profound, earth-shattering truths into shallow, self-serving slogans? What if the real meaning was far more challenging and infinitely more rewarding than the fortune cookie wisdom we've settled for? Today, we're going to break 5 of the most popular verses in the Bible out of their prisons of misinterpretation. We're going to restore their original intended meaning. By the end of this, you will never see these verses the same way again. And trust me, that's a good thing. Because understanding what they really mean can change everything. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All right, let's kick things off with the undisputed champion of misunderstood verses, the one you see everywhere from the football field to the boardroom, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The common take is that this is a divine guarantee for personal victory. It's become a spiritual trump card for acing that test, landing that promotion, or winning the championship game. We treat it like a holy energy drink, a promise that if we just believe hard enough, Christ will grant us the strength to achieve whatever we set our minds to. But that interpretation completely misses the point. To understand why, we have to look at where the author, the Apostle Paul, was when he wrote these words. He wasn't in a locker room getting hyped for a game. He was in a cold, dark Roman prison, chained up and facing the very real possibility of execution. When Paul says he can do all things, he isn't talking about achieving personal ambitions. He's talking about enduring any and every circumstance. Right before this famous verse, he writes, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. So the all things he can do isn't about winning, it's about surviving. It's about finding contentment when you have absolutely nothing. It's about staying faithful when you're staring suffering right in the face. The verse isn't about the strength to achieve, it's about the strength to endure. It's not a promise of success, but a promise of God's presence with you through hardship. This isn't a verse for the winner's podium. It's a verse for the hospital bed. It's for the person who just lost their job, for the family grieving a loss, for the moments when you feel like you have nothing left. The true power here isn't a guarantee that you'll reach the mountaintop. It's the promise that Christ will be with you, strengthening you, even when you're at the bottom of the valley. It's a message of perseverance, not unlimited performance. Matthew 7:1. Judge not, that you be not judged. Next up is perhaps the most weaponized scripture in modern culture. Judge not. We've all seen it happen. It's the ultimate conversation stopper. The second someone offers a moral critique or points out a behavior that might be harmful, this verse gets thrown down like a shield. It's used to mean, you can't tell me I'm wrong, or only God can judge me. It has become an anthem for moral relativism, a blanket ban on all forms of discernment. But is that what Jesus really meant? Did he want us to just turn a blind eye to everything? Not a chance. In fact, if you just keep reading, you see the real meaning almost immediately. Jesus follows up by saying, Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. See? Jesus isn't forbidding judgment. He's forbidding hypocritical judgment. He's not telling us to never help our brother with the speck in his eye. He's telling us to deal with our own giant log of sin first. This isn't a call to moral indifference. It's a call to serious self-examination and humility. The warning in Matthew 7:1 is against setting ourselves up as the righteous condemning judge over someone else when we ourselves are deeply flawed. It's a command to approach others with mercy, recognizing that we'll be judged by the same standard we use for them. So this verse isn't a shield to protect us from all criticism. It's a mirror that forces us to look at ourselves first. The goal isn't to stop making discerning judgments, but to make sure we make the right kind of judgments, ones motivated by love and a real desire to help, not by self-righteous pride. Before you point out the speck in someone else's eye, you have to be willing to perform surgery on your own. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. This next verse is a favorite for graduation cards and inspirational posters. It feels like a warm, personal hug from God, a direct promise of success, prosperity, and a life free from pain. The misuse here is treating it as a personal guarantee for a happy, comfortable life right now. We cling to it when we want that new job or a way out of a tough spot, thinking it means God has a wonderful, immediate plan to make all our dreams come true. But the context of this promise is devastatingly different. This verse wasn't written to someone having a bad day in the 21st century. It was written by the prophet Jeremiah to the entire nation of Israel, who had been conquered and dragged from their homes into forced exile in Babylon, as a direct judgment from God for their sin. And God's plan wasn't for their immediate rescue. In the verses right before this famous promise, God tells them to settle in. He says, "Build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city, to which I have carried you into exile." Why? Because this period of judgment was going to last for 70 years. Most of the people who first heard this promise would never live to see it fulfilled. They would die in exile. The promise was for their children and their grandchildren. It was a long-term promise to the whole nation that God had not abandoned his people and would, eventually, restore them. So what does this mean for us? It's not a promise to be rescued from hardship immediately. It's a promise that God is in control for the long haul, that he has a redemptive plan for his people, and that our hope isn't based on our current circumstances, but on his ultimate faithfulness. This verse teaches us to trust God's character even when his plan involves decades of difficulty. It's a promise of ultimate hope, not immediate comfort. Matthew 18:20. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them. This verse has become the unofficial slogan for small groups and prayer meetings. We often use it as a comforting thought to legitimize a small gathering, as if to say, "Hey, don't worry that there are only a few of us. Jesus promised he'd show up." The misuse here is subtle but really important. We've turned it into a formula for invoking God's presence, implying that Jesus is somehow more present with a small group than he is with one person praying alone. This can lead to the false idea that solitary prayer is less effective, or that God's presence has a minimum attendance requirement. But again, context is king. Jesus isn't giving a general lesson on prayer meetings. He's wrapping up a very specific, very serious instruction on church discipline. The entire passage before this is a step-by-step guide for how to handle sin within the church community. The process is, if someone sins against you, go to them privately. If they don't listen, Take one or two others with you as witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell the whole church. It's in that specific context confronting sin to bring about reconciliation that Jesus gives this promise. The 2 or 3 gathered in His name aren't just having coffee. They are witnesses in a serious matter of church discipline. Jesus is promising that when believers gather to make these difficult, weighty decisions in His name, His divine authority is with them, backing their unified, prayerful judgment. This verse isn't about the minimum number of people needed for God to hear a prayer. God is always present with His people, whether they are alone or in a crowd of thousands. Instead, this verse shows the incredible gravity of a church community that takes sin and restoration seriously. It's not about counting heads for a prayer meeting. It's about Christ's authority in the tough work of reconciliation. Psalm 46:10. Be still, and know that I am God. Finally, we have a verse that has become a mantra for the modern wellness movement. Be still, and know that I am God is often interpreted as a gentle whisper to quiet our anxious minds, to meditate, and find inner peace. It seems perfect for a yoga retreat or a quiet moment of reflection. While finding peace in God is a wonderful thing, that interpretation strips the verse of its raw power. To get the real meaning, you have to read the whole psalm. Psalm 46 is not a peaceful, meditative poem. It is a triumphant, almost violent war hymn that celebrates God's supreme power in the middle of global chaos. The psalm opens with images of the world falling apart. The earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. The nations are in an uproar, kingdoms fall. It describes God ending wars, breaking bows, shattering spears, and burning shields with fire. It's in the middle of this chaotic, terrifying scene that God Himself speaks, and His voice thunders with authority. The command, "Be still," is not a gentle suggestion to relax. The original Hebrew word, rapha, means to cease striving, stop fighting, or let go. This is a command to the warring, arrogant nations of the world. Stop your futile rebellion, drop your weapons, and surrender before the unrivaled power of the one true God. It's less about finding personal serenity, and more about submitting to God's absolute authority. It's a cosmic stand-down order. It's a declaration that He is God, and He will be exalted among the nations, whether they like it or not. The application for us, then, is not just to quiet our minds, but to quiet our frantic efforts to control everything. It's to surrender our own battles, our fears, and our anxieties, and to stand in awe of the God who commands nations and holds the universe in His hands. True peace doesn't come from just being quiet. It comes from knowing the one who has the power to silence the raging storms, both around us and within us. So there you have it. 5 verses rescued from the world of catchphrases and slogans. From a promise of endurance in a prison cell to a command for entire nations to stand down, the true meaning of these scriptures is so much more potent than how we often use them. What we see again and again is that context is the key that unlocks the real power of the Bible. Without it, we risk turning profound truth into a shallow reflection of our own desires. With it, we gain a deeper, more authentic understanding of God. The goal isn't just to be correct. It's to move past a faith of fortune cookies and coffee mugs into a faith that is deep, challenging, and truly life-changing. If this video helped you see these verses in a new light, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe for more content that goes beyond the surface. Now I've got a question for you. What's another Bible verse you've heard used in a way that just didn't sit right with you? Drop it in the comments below. I read every one and would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.